joined now by Yankees Vice President and Director of Amateur Scouting, Damon Oppenheimer. And Damon, let's talk about how satisfied you are with where some of the young prospects are, because now we're starting to see that pipeline reach the major leagues. A lot of guys contributed last year.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I think that for the first time in quite a few years, we had some guys that looked like they could come up and impact the club and be contributors to a championship team. And so it was really an exciting deal for all the scouts that were involved in putting it together.
Let's talk about one specific guy, in Luis Severino. You've had the chance to see him come from the lowest rung and then have the splash that he did at the major league level last season. Did you envision that? Did you think when he got the ball from George Girardi last year he could do what he did?
You thought that he had the tools to do it. His calmness, his patience and stuff like that made you also think that he could come up and be this kind of pitcher. You never know how it's going to happen once the lights go on up there at that level. And as some of these guys say, they see the third deck for the first time. But he handled it well. We probably couldn't have asked for much more than that out of a young kid like that.
Now, there's a guy that's not there yet, but you hear his name a lot. He's an imposing guy, Aaron Judge, the outfielder. How close is he, and what have you seen from him in the minors so far?
I don't know really a timetable of how close. I'm sure Aaron could get up to the big leagues next year and be a contributor. Is he ready to go up there and be an everyday player for us and be an impact guy like we think he can? That's I'm not sure about. And he'll let us know. His performance will let us know that. But he is a mammoth young man. He just seems like he gets bigger every time you see him. He's strong. He's got just a tremendous demeanor about him too, and he's another guy that's like the guy that came up we'll probably talk about in Bird, that has this way of slowing things down. So it's really he's got huge tools and he's got great makeup. So hopefully we can get ourselves an impact guy.
I'm glad you brought up Greg Bird. He, like Severino, really showed that calmness, the coolness. When it comes to Greg Bird, we've kicked it around on this show. We feel like some people say, well, he needs more reps at AAA. But on the other hand, can you find a spot for him, keep him in the majors, keep that bat, maybe move him around the infield a little bit? What do you think?
I think he's a first baseman. So I think that as long as there's not a spot if there's not a spot at first base, then we're looking at possibly having to send him back. And it's just the way it is, I guess. He's such a good player, and he did such a good job of impacting that club, but we'd like to keep him up there.
Have you toyed with the idea of maybe giving him some reps in the outfield just as a way to kind of keep him involved a couple days a week, or no?
I haven't been part of that. I don't know if they have or they haven't. When we signed him, he was a catcher, and the workload on it was tough on his back. So that's why we ended up moving him to first base. He's become a good defensive first baseman. I don't know if there's going to be any talk of sticking him out in one of the corner outfields.
Your job, Damon, is to evaluate players, get information from any source that you can. Turns out that Alex Rodriguez has become one of those sources for your scouting department.
Yeah, Alex has a passion for the game, as you guys know. He has a great passion for amateur scouting. He and I will talk. We'll talk about players in the Miami area. He has a lot of knowledge about guys that are down that way, and so I always check with him if there's a guy in Miami. And then he's always kind of getting back in touch with me about how some of the kids have gone up to the big leagues have done, and just trying to help those guys out through some of the trials that he's had. He's been great.
Another guy that we've heard a lot about is Gary Sanchez. John Ryan Murphy, obviously no longer with the organization. What type of growth have you seen from Sanchez?
Tremendous. Saw Gary for the first time when he was 15, 16 years old, and he had tools, and he was a big power. He could throw, a strong guy. It was really fun to watch, but he didn't have great discipline, and most of us at 15, 16 don't have it, and he really has grown up. The job that Josh Paul and the catching guys have done with him in the minor leagues has been tremendous in watching the progress he's made as a receiver, and I think he always thought of himself as a bat guy, and now with the idea of how important it is to be a good receiver, he's taken that a lot more serious, and it's shown up and he's really played well.
Damon, you look at your first-round pick last year, James Caprillion. What do you like about him? What does the organization like about him? And also, how close is he being a guy who can make that leap to the major leagues?
Yeah, James is a guy that we really felt fortunate to get in the draft. When we do evaluate guys, we try to check off boxes on what they bring to the table, and James checked off a lot of boxes for us when it came to his stuff, his ability to locate, the body type, the athleticism he had, and the makeup that he had. He nailed everything, and we constantly saw him as throughout the year after signing him, he's still getting better. Most college guys, a lot of times, it is what it is, but his velocity has jumped in instructional league up to 96, 97. Breaking balls become even better. I think that if he continues on the track that he's on right now, we could be seeing a guy who hits New York this year for us.
Damon, there's been a lot of talk, final question for you, about contracts coming off the books over the next couple of years. Do you have any sense over the next 3 or 4 years how different the major league team will look?
Yeah, I don't know. That's probably up to something that Hal and Cash will decide, but our job is just to try to keep plugging away with guys that can come up through the system, and maybe it's a Ben Gamble that comes up and is an outfielder for us. It's Ref Snyder coming up and playing. It's continuing to pound and put pitching in, but I don't know if we're gonna how we'll move forward with free agency or things like that.